In this video, we'll create a virtual set with the After Effects and Maya, and we'll use the video from the Hollywood CameraWorks. First, I would like you to click here to download the footage. Then in After Effects, let's double click on the project window here and find your footage, and then select the first one, the first image. By default, it should recognize this is a sequence image, so it should check on PNG sequence and click on open. So as I open it, as you can see, the frame rates for my setting, by default, it should set it as a 24 frames per second. So if yours is different, click on After Effects, go to Preferences, Import, and at the input setting here, you can change what is the frame rate you want the file to be imported to. For example, if I change it to 12, 12 is more for hand drawing animation, right? So if I delete this one and import it again, and you'll see now it imported as a 12 frames per second. So that means each second it will play 12 images. All right. However, since this is for film, I will ask you to come to the setting here and change it to 24. So make sure your setting is a 24 frames per second for import, and import this PNG image sequence as 24 frames per second. So when we play, it'll play 24 frames per second. So now let's drop it to create a conversation, and here we go. So as you can see, now it changed it to a square shape, but our original footage is 1920 to 1080. So what we can do is I'll just right click here, go to the composition setting, and change here to 1920 to 1080. So if you change here, the height also changes. You can just uncheck the log aspect ratio, and then you can change them, individually, and click on OK. So now, as you can see, our canvas is wider, and then we can select our footage and go to the scale and unlink the X and Y. So now we can just change the X. So because we just increased it, so 150 will be good. Okay. And after you've done that, we can select this one, and we can do tracking. However, if you track it directly on this layer, if you just track camera directly on this layer, it will fail, because first we have changed the scale at here. Second, we have changed this conversation's dimension. Okay, so in that scenario, what I would do is I'll just select this conversation and drop it to create another conversation. So in this new conversation, the first conversation become a layer. So I can just select this layer and I can apply track camera. And once it's done here, you should see the count for points. If you put cursor on here, you should see this wheel. Okay. So right now the points is a little bit too small, so we can go to the track point size and increase the size. So we should be able to see a little bit about the points, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is go to Effects, select the 3D camera tracker, which is the Effects. So first, I would like to grab all of these points on our character. Okay, all the points on the character. So now I select the first a few, which is on the body, and then I would like to select the points on the neck and hold on Shift. So hold on Shift, you can continue to add points to your selection. And then maybe here we got some. Okay, so now basically I select all of the points on the character's body, and then I can, first we'll create a camera. Okay, create a track camera, and then with these points selected and right click, and we're going to create 30 nodes. So this is going to create 30 track and node objects. So these node objects will stay on the character's body, as you can see. Okay, so we'll use these points to reference the character. So we can set a color for it. So here, pick up your favorite color. For demonstration purpose, here I just choose fuchsia. Okay, And then we can go to another frame and see if we missed anything. So we can select the 3D camera tracker, and as you can see, these 2 points on the knees, it doesn't come up in the beginning, so we can just continue to add these points, and maybe add 1 point here, 2 point here, and maybe a few, just this one. See, there's one smaller one which should be in the back. I don't want to pick it up. It should be on the backdrop. So I'll just pick up these points on the character's body, and here maybe on the ankle, and right click and add 8 more. So for these 8 low objects I just created, double check if it is on the character's body. We don't want to pick up any points that is on the backdrop for now. Okay, so it looks like all the points I picked up is correctly displayed on the character's body, so that is good. Okay, so I'll also change these to fuchsia. So now if I select all these low objects I created, as you can see, it kind of draw the outline of this character, right? This is what I want. Maybe I also want to create something on the character's snips. So here, get one. So here's one, here's another, and we can just right click. Oops, sorry. So we can select these 2 and right click and create 2 nodes. And again, double check to make sure they are actually on the snips, not in the back. Okay, so it's correct. So I'll just change the color. Okay, and if you want more detail, you can continue to add no objects, but however, I think this is totally enough. Okay, I can use this as a reference. And then we can work on the left wall. However, before I move forward, I would like to save my project, so I just save it as step 1. So just save it in case your software crashed. And second, I will select all of these null objects and temporarily turn them off, okay, to save some RAM on my computer. And then I will select the 3D camera tracker again, and I will start to pick up the points on the left wall, only the points on the left wall. Very few on the first frame, so we can just right click and create a null object, and then we can go to another frame. So here, as you can see, now we start to pick up points, right, and here, so we can select these points, and here, 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 okay, and right click and create 8 nodes, and then let's continue all the way back to here. So now we can see we get a few more around this corner, so we can select them, okay, and right click and create 11 nodes. Okay, so these are the new node objects we have created, so we can select all of them and double check to see if they are located on the left wall. Perfect. Okay, I think here we want to add some, and maybe here. So let's select this camera tracker, and let's see if we can find any point here, and here, and back here, and on top here. Okay, I couldn't remember if we have created a no point here, but I'll just grab them and right click and create 8 nodes. Okay, so now we have 8 new nodes, and select all of these node objects that is showing up, and let's test the play. Okay, we are missing 3 at here, so let's see. Okay, now we got the tracking points here, so we can select those 2 and right click on it and create 2 nodes, and then back to here we can see this one. Okay, select it and right click and create a node. Alright, so now we should have these 3 points being tracked, as you can see. Alright, so I will select this new node object that is on the left wall, and I will tag it to a different color. So let's tag it as a blue color. Okay, and then let's work on the floor. So let's hide all of these node objects and select the 3D camera tracker, and then let's start from the 0 frame, 0 second, and let's pick up all of the available points on the floor. Now, as I could see, I only have this one, and here is all available. Yes. Maybe I can select one here and a few at here and one at here. Okay, so only 7. So I'll just create 7 node object and double check to make sure they are tracking. Yes, they're tracking. And then I will go back, select the 3D camera, and go to a different frame until we get some points for tracking. And okay, still not get any points here. So I will just select these a few. Oh, here we actually have more. So select these a few and right click and create 5 node objects. And then I'll select this 3D camera tracker again and go to a later frame. So here I can see that we get 4 or 5 or more from this corner. So you can select them and right click and create a node and go to a later frame and select the 3D tracker camera, and let's see if we can select any points here. Right click, create 2 node, and here right click and create 2 nodes. Here this point, let me show you. This point will show up for a second, so I can just right click and create node objects. So I'll show you that one. So that is the new node object I just created. As you can see, it's not on the neck. It is actually, oh no. See, this one, the position is incorrect. It actually is in the air, so I will just delete that one. I don't need that. So now let's select all of these new node objects we have created and double check to make sure they are on the floor. We still didn't get any points on here, so let's see if we can get them. So around here I can see we get a few tracking points here, so we can create the node objects. So these are 3. So great. And let's see, 3D camera tracker, and still not any tracking points available back there. Alright, but that's fine. So we should have enough points on the floor, so we can select the points for we created it for the floor and just double check. Okay, it's tracking, so we can tag the color as maybe green. Okay, so green color for the floor, and then we can get this wall and the back wall. So we can select the 3D tracker camera, and at the beginning let's grab a few points on the backdrop, and here and here. Okay, so we only get the points around this corner, so we can right click and create a node object. Oh, here, create a 20 node objects. Okay, so these are the new node objects we have created, and we can hide the other node objects we tagged in green. We can hide those, so we can save some RAM. So now let's select the new node objects we have created for the backdrop and see if they are tracking fine. Okay, they're good. And then we'll come back here, this corner, and select the 3D camera tracker and see if we can get any points here. Okay, and here, right click and create 5 node, and then you can select the 3D camera tracker and go back here maybe, and we can see some points around this corner, and we can right click and create 3 nodes. So now let's select these nodes and double check for their position. As you can see, these points is in the air, so I would select it and delete it, and then let's select all the rest node objects we just created and see if it is working properly. Yep, it's fine. Okay, so now I don't think here is necessary, but we can create the tracking points for here as well if you want. So let's select the current node objects we have created and let's tag it as a purple. Okay, and then select the 3D camera tracker, and then we can grab this corner. Okay, this corner, and right click and create a 45 node objects. Okay, so this will be here. Okay, so it's in that corner. Okay, and we can tag it as a yellow color. And then let's see, when the camera pan around and comes to here, we get a foreground. I think it could be a good reference if you want to create a wall in front of the character, and then you can use these points. So we'll just select these tracking points. It should be usable. So we'll right click and create 7 nodes. Oh, here we get one more. I think we missed it. So we can right click and create a node, and then come to a earlier frame. Let's see. Yep, we've done that. So now if we select all of these 7 tracking nodes, as you can see, they are in the foreground. Okay, so we can tag it to maybe orange. Okay, so after you get all of these tracking nodes, we'll start to move on to Maya. So let's show all these tracking nodes. Alright, so now I should have a lot tracking node objects. Okay, so they represent this space, so I can deselect it, and then I can go to the top Windows, Extension, and open the Maya Live Link. Here we go. Alright, and also I will open Maya, and for Maya I will go to File, and let's see here, After Effects Live Link. So now as you can see in Maya, it shows we're already connected to that conversation. And if we switch to After Effects, here it connects to Untitled, which is a Maya project. So you can select from the track camera to all of the nodes and drag it to here. So now you can see it shows that we have updated. And then if you switch back to Maya, and now you should see in our scene we have this camera, which is from the from After Effects. You can see the camera movement, right? And you can also see these locators, so which are the tracking markers. So if you hold on Option key, if you use Mac computer, use Option key. If you use Windows, hold on Alt key. So with your mouse left key, you can orient around, right? And then we can see our character is standing here. See, this is a neck, this is arm, head, and here's the left wall. This is the front, the wood or something. I don't know. You know, we can use it as a reference. Here's the backdrop. Here's the backdrop, and here's the left wall. Okay, so this is a good start point for us to create a model and create the virtual set. Okay. However, before we get started, I want you to set a few things. So first is your project frame rate setting. So here, as you can see, I set as a 24 frame per second. So that should match with your After Effects. So if you go back to After Effects, and here, as you can see, our image sequence is 24 frames per second, right? So make sure here set as 24. And then you can, if I grab down below here, so if you click on here, you'll have double windows. So for the left window, you can connect a palo perspective. Check on the 3D track camera. So basically that is After Effects camera. So what it will do is it will make your left window from the track camera's point of view. So if I click here and hit space key, so I can enter this view, and if I play, okay, so that is from the After Effects camera's point of view. So I'll go back and press space key again, you can jump back here. So another thing I want you to do is the timeline setting. So we have 24 frames per second, and this whole thing has 8 seconds and 23 frames. Okay, so 8 seconds times 24 frames per second, and then plus 23 frames. So that is 215. Okay, 215 frames. So here we'll need to set the setting. So right now the whole project only has 200 frames. So we can set it as 215, but we can do extra. So I'll do 220. See, as you can see, after 215 the camera will stop, right? So I just do some extra frames, and then we can start to do modeling. So this is not a modeling course. If you're interested to create very customized model and apply textures, I would suggest you to take the 3D modeling animation class with me. Alright, so however, here we'll make it very simple. First, let's create a floor plan. And let's save the project first. So go to File and go to Project Window. And here, click on New and click on this button. And here you'll define a location. Alright, so I can go to Virtual Setting and Demo. And then I'll save my project here. So select and then give your project a name. So here I'll see Demo Maya. You can do anything, you can name it by your name and accept. So that will create a project folder, for our project, but our current scene is still not saved. So in a second I'll explain you what is a project folder, what is this scene. So here I will just go to the file and save scene as, and then it'll jump to the project folder we just created and go to the scenes folder, right? So save as Maya ASCII, and then you can put a name here. So you can name it by your name, but I'll just say step 1, okay, and save. So now you can see that in the demos folder, I have my project folder, right? So in the project folder, basically it created all these subfolders. So this is a Maya project folder. So later on, if you are creating texture for your model, it'll store it here. If you render your images, it'll be here. Render movie, it'll be here. And your scenes will be stored here. So this is a project folder. And then we save a scene, which is here. Okay. So now we can continue to work our scene. So to create model, you'll go to the tool menu here for create. And polygon primitives, and we'll create a plan. And here's the plan we just created. As you can see, it's not at the same spot as our model. So we can hit R key for scale, or you can just click on here. And then we can scale it up a little bit. And then we can just hit W key or use this button to move. And move it to the floor. So the floor will be here. So we can hold on VK and then snap it to that point. So that will be placed on the floor. Okay, You can make it much bigger if you want. Okay, and I'll just make it this size. So this is how to create a plan, and you can also create other primitives like a cube, sphere, or cylinder, anything you want. So NURB primitive is a different thing, which I will not explain this in this class. Okay, so I'll just create a polygon primitive and all these objects. Okay, and to apply texture for the model, you'll go to Windows, go to rendering setting, hypershade, and here in the hypershade, okay, just to take a few seconds to load. In here, basically we can create the materials and define what texture we want to apply on the plan. So here, for example, if we create a material and if we create a number material, so number, bling, and foam are three common materials we would use. Bling, we would use it for metal because it has reflections, and foam, we can use it for glass. It has a high reflectivity. So number is more kind of a dull surface. It doesn't reflect any light, as you can see. Right, so we can rename this material as floor M for material. Okay, and for the color, basically here we'll define a texture for it. So what I will do first is I will go back to my project folder here. Okay, and I will go to the assets that I provided to you. So go to the science fiction wall texture, and then just select all of them, Command C to copy, and then go to the project folders, this project folder, and go to the source image folder and paste the texture images here. So now if we go back to Maya, and when we click on here, the color channel, we'll be able to know the texture we just copied. And here we'll create a file. You don't know the image file, and click on this arrow again, and then it'll come to the file attribute, click on the image name. So now we can load an image. So it depends on what type of the texture you want for the floor. Maybe I would let's see. Maybe I'll just use this one. It's very interesting, so I'll load it. And then we can select this image in the scene and right click on the material and assign the material to selection. So nothing was showing up right now, but if you press 6 key on your keyboard, it should show the texture. Then let me show you more. So first, as you can see, this image is flat, right? It shows a flat. I know this plan we created is a flat. However, we can use the texture to show the bumps. So what we can do is select this material again and go back to the material setting, and here you should see bump mapping. So click on this button and load a file image again. And then here for use as, instead of use as a bump, bump map is basically a old type of texture map to generate the detail on the surface. Okay, so we'll select the tangent space normal. The normal map is more kind of commonly used. Alright, so for bump value, you can click on this arrow key, and then for image name, you can load the normal map. So we have used this texture map, right? So we'll use its normal map. So the normal map looks like this. So it will use blue, red, green as a color information to generate 3D information. So red, maybe red is X value, green is Y value, blue is a Z value. So it'll use them to define the points in the 3D space. So if I applied it, so now you can see that your image will show the bumps. Now it looks more kind of 3D, right? And if you have lights in the scene, it'll corresponding with the lights. As you can see now, if I'm looking at it from this angle, here is illuminated, and if I go to another degree, here will be dark. It'll drop shadow to it. So now it looks like this is a 3D plan. Okay, so that's the first thing, first issue. And the second issue, as you can see, our characters are standing here, but this plane, the texture is huge. So I want this tile to be smaller. So what I can do is I can select this floor and go to here, click on the color, and let me just enlarge this window so you can see it better. Okay, so in the setting here, if you go to UV coordinates, okay, click on this button, and then here you can repeat the UV. So let's say if I repeat UV, if I type 2 on X and type 2 on Y, and you can see that it kind of repeat that tile. So now the tiles are smaller. So if I give it about 8 and 8, alright, it should show a much smaller scale of the texture image, right? So remember that we only change the tile on the texture side, not the normal map side. Okay, so what we'll do is go back to the attribute editor, the hypershade, and select the material, and this time we'll go to the bump mapping and also go to its UV coordinates, and for the repeat U and V, type 8 and 8 again. So this is for the normal map. The normal map is for the bumps on the surface, right? So now you can see that you can click on this window to hide that attribute window. Okay, so now you can see that both the surface texture and the bump map, it will match. Okay, so now we are showing the texture in a much smaller scale. Okay, so that's how you would create texture, create a model, and apply texture to your model. Alright, so now let's go to the assets provided, and let's import these models. Okay, so here I'm going to copy both the texture and the FBX file into the source images folder. So that's container 2. So now let's go to the source image folder and drop this FBX file into the scene. And your model will be huge. As you can see, it covered the whole scene. So we can just select this model, or you can go to the Windows and Outliner, so you can see that model. So if you scroll down all the way back, so that is the container model. You select it, and then we can try 0.01 for scale XYZ and see how it looks. Okay, so that is the container, and we can hit W key for move and place it to the back. So hold on, VK to snap it to the backdrop. Here is it. So we now just place it on the backdrop. Okay, maybe you can move it down a little bit and scale it up. So we can place it on the floor actually. Alright, so press 6 key. So if the texture doesn't showing up, and then here we can just create a material for it. So here let's create a blim material this time. So select this blim material and let's rename it to container 2M to identify it. And then for the color channel, let's load a texture for it. So we will not use a coordinator in this case. Okay, so I'll just go to image name and load the container diffuse map, diffuse it, which is a color map. Okay, and then select the container material again and go to its bump mapping channel and load texture image. And change it to tangent space normal, and then we're going to load this normal map. Okay, and then select your container and then right click on the material and apply it. So now the texture should showing up. Here I just use the same procedure to import a third one. So first I copy these three to the source image folder and then bring in the FBX file to here, and I scale it down to this same scale as the container, first container. Alright, and then I created a benim material here, a benim material, and apply the color and the bound map. Alright, so for the next one, the next container, which is the 03B, is a little bit different because it has two components. So let me show you. So we'll just copy this whole thing and drop it to the source image folder, and let's drop it in here. So the model will be huge, right? So what we can do is you can select this first container, and you can copy the scale value, and then go to Outliner, and if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, and here's the new model you just imported, right? As you can see, it has two components, so we want to scale them as a whole, scale the whole thing together. So select this whole folder, and we can change the scale X, Y, Z all back to 0.045. Okay, and then you can select this whole folder. Make sure you select this whole folder instead of the individual components. Okay, click on this whole folder and hit W key to move, and let's move it all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then we can create a material for it. So here let's create a benim material again, and I'm gonna say I'll just say CM1, so it could be easier for you to see. So this is the first material we created for this container, and the color, let's load a texture image, and so here we'll select container 3B, D. So this is for the body, and this is for the fence. Remember, it has two components, right? So select the body and diffuse map, and then select this material again, and go to the bound mapping channel, and load the image. And here for use as, we're going to use as a tangent normal, and then let's load the normal map for the body. And then I would, grab the body, so you can just click here to select the body, or you can go to the Outliner if you are not sure. So go to Outliner, and this is the body and this is the fence. So select the body and right click on the material just created and assign. So now you can see the difference. It only assigns the material to a portion of the body, right? So now we're going to create another material. So for this material, I'm going to say CM2. So this is for the fence. And for the color, let's drop in the fence texture, which is this one, container 3B fence diffuse map. And select this material again, CM2, and go to its bound mapping channel and color, and make sure to change it to tangent normal, and then I will load this normal map. Alright, so now we can select the fence, or you can come back here, select this one, no, and right click on the new material just created and apply. So this will apply the fence texture, right? As you can see, we have the wires, the fence there. Okay, so that's in the case that if your model has multiple components, and then you're going to create a different texture for them. And then here we can customize our model a little bit, so we can just duplicate select the model, hit Command D to make a duplication, and we can move this one back to there, and maybe we can just rotate it a little bit to show the corner. Alright, so now let's talk about rendering. So here we'll go to the render setting, clicking on this button, and here you can choose either auto render or Maya software render. We'll not do the batch render, which is a final render, so we'll just do a draft render, and here either of these two is fine. Image format, you can choose a JPEG and currently has a 100, and here's the important, which is the image size preset. So here we'll do HD 1080 because here for the composition we have 1920 to 1080, right? So make sure it matches. And renderable camera, choose AE 3D track camera. Okay, once you have set up this, and you can just click on close, and we can jump to not the full windows, but let me reset it again. So here I'll set 2 windows, and left window I'll set it for the AE camera window. So as you can see, the texture doesn't show in other window, so I can just click on here and press 6 key, so it also display the texture in the After Effects tracking camera window. Okay, so now let's set a few things. First, here go to the view and go to the camera setting and check on resolution gate, so we know what is in frame, what is not. And also, if you hit space key to enter this window, and also you can go to show, and all the way to the bottom, make sure you check off grid. Okay, it's out of frame here, but you should see that grid. So what is grid? Grid basically is this one. So if, for example, if I go to show and check off grid, you can turn off the default grid. Okay, so now full screen, and let's just test play to see how it looks here. So our character will stand in this space. Looks cool. Okay, so now we can just stop, and then we can do a test render. So go to window and go to play blast. Again, as I said, we are not doing a full render with the lighting, texture. We'll just do a draft render through here. So check on time slider and make sure all of your setting matches with mine. And then here you can choose a location to export. So when you click on that, you should export to your project folder, to movies. Okay, and file name, you can just see test render 1, and let's render. Once it's finished, you should have this video. Okay, and then we can switch back to After Effects. Okay, and we can drop in the video we just rendered. It should be stored in the movies folder, and we can drop it in here. Okay, and before we move forward, we can select this effect. Okay, and let's apply a key light effect and get rid of the green screen. Okay, and also let's get rid of here. So let's try increase the color gain, the screen gain, and my computer is running slow because I'm recording and open multiple programs at the same time. So let's try play with these settings. Now it doesn't look good, so we can just keep as 50. And then I can go to screen gain. Maybe here I can put a 110, so lower it down a little bit. And then go to screen matte and lower down the knip white and increase the knip black. So just play with this value until you are satisfied. Okay, and also our footage is not super high res, so if you are looking for a super clean result, it's very hard. But we can get as clean as we could. Alright, so I think it should be enough for demonstration purpose. And then I would create a mask to mask out here the environment. So this is the first one. And I will go down to here the mask setting and I'll change it to subtract. And here we can just preview and see how it looks. And when it gets to here, I would like to create a keyframe, one keyframe, and then here I will start to move this stuff upward. And at here I will add one more keyframe and then move a few frames later, and then I would switch back to selection tool and click on some of these points and move them closer to the character. So now we get rid of this corner, maybe here also. Okay, so now let's deal with this side. So we can select this whole thing and use a pen tool to create a mask. So let's go back to the beginning and start from here. Right, and for the mask type, also change it to subtract, and then we'll switch to the selection tool and then we can create keyframes. Okay, looks like on the top we had to mask out, so maybe we can just move these points down a little bit. Okay, so you can continue work on it and remove these markers. Okay, so here let's create one more. So this purple one is to subtract these markers. So let's see how it looks. And then we can create one specifically for that marker. Okay, and make it a subtract. And we can actually temporarily change it to none, so we can see that. And we can track it. So as I double click and move it, as you can see, it creates a keyframe down below here. And then I can change it to subtract. Alright, so now let's drop in the test render video all the way to the bottom underneath our character. Okay, and let's go to the scale and scale it up, and to make sure the frame here matches with our current frame. So let's just type the value 130, so it will match. So now if you test apply, you should see your character will stand on the ground very well and will fit the camera movement. So sometimes if you notice a little sliding, if your character movement and the background movement doesn't match perfectly, so there might be two reasons. First reason, you can go back to Maya and see if your plans tracked on the node object, on the node killers. You can pick up a different point, a point which is on the character's foot, right? So right now I'm picking a tracking point which is on the floor, so maybe that point is not accurate, which causes the character's feet to kind of a little bit shaky. And another reason, maybe sometimes in Maya there's a setting which is a little bit complex to explain. So you can try go all the way here back, so you can see the frames, and you can cut one frame in the beginning. Select the test render, you render from Maya, cut one frame, and just start from the second frame. So sometimes Maya would render one extra frame in the beginning. So that is the setting in Maya. Alright, so cut one frame and see if it improves. Then if you're satisfied with the result, you can go to File, Export, Adobe Media Encoder, and you can start to render.